Every day more people are deciding to create video content. The problem is, if you are just using a camera on its own, your video footage is probably going to look very, very amateurish. Thankfully, however, there are very simple ways that you can make that footage look a lot more professional, even on a very tight budget. So today I'm going to talk you through the 4 basic mistakes that all new video creators make and the easy ways that you can correct them. Let's begin. Firstly, lighting. Lighting's very important to creating good looking videos. Anytime you try and shoot video indoors, there's never going to be enough ambient light around for the camera to just naturally see what you're trying to video. So without artificial lighting, the camera's going to have to increase the sensitivity of the signal, and that's going to wind up with a very grainy looking picture. For example, if I switch these lights off now, this is what the video would look like. Not the best looking footage, is it? Now what's going to happen is the camera's going to have to increase the ISO sensitivity in order to brighten the image enough to see me. And that's going to look like this. Still not the best, is it? The lighting's very uneven. I look a complete mess even more than normal. And not only that, but now we've had all this graining effect come in from the camera itself. Back to normal lighting. So making sure you've got good lighting is going to really improve the look of your video, because you're not going to have to strain your camera as much in order to see you. Now, lighting can get really expensive if you go for very high-end setups. However, there are much cheaper options out there that will give you a very, very good result, such as the ones I'm using now, but obviously you can't see them. So, let me take you on a tour. Welcome to my humble abode. Now, you can ignore that light behind me and that light over there because they're more for the green screen that you probably don't have. But when you see me on camera, which is back there, I'm actually lit by these 2 lights here and here. Now, these are just very cheap on-off lights that I've got on Amazon for 50-60 quid. I'll leave a link down below. But they're great because they're in a big softbox. Now, the good thing with softboxes, as opposed to the bright lights like this, is when they're pointing at your face, they give you a more natural looking light. So not only are there going to be less shadows across your face, but also you're not going to have to squint as much as well. And back to the video. You don't even need to buy light specifically, you can just utilize what you've already got. If it's daylight outside, then position yourself near a window. Or if not, use the lights you've already got, but make sure that they're in front of you, lighting you up. You don't want them lighting up behind you. And that leads us on to number 2, the background. Now, a background becomes important because it can either add visually to what you're trying to get across, but it could also potentially distract. Now, I use a green screen, but that's because I change the backgrounds and also use a lot of animations that a green screen allows me to do. You don't need to do that. You can use the room that you've got. You just need to be wary of what's behind you. If it's something that bolsters what you're trying to get across and is relative to the content of your video, then it is worthwhile staying in there. If you've got stuff in the background though that's completely unrelated, you're potentially going to be distracting people away from you or whatever your subject is onto the background instead. So when you're setting up a shot, be wary of what direction is behind you and any objects that you might want to hide. Now, maybe you're shooting in a very confined space or you haven't got the flexibility to move stuff around. Now, you can get pre-printed backdrops of various designs if you want, or even easier, you could just use a very plain coloured bed sheet instead. Moving on from what's behind you, let's talk about you. More specifically, how you frame yourself in the shot. A lot of people make the mistake of pointing their camera straight at their face, which means that their face ends up square in the middle of the picture. As a result, you wind up with all this void around you that's just wasted space. So your best bet is to tilt the camera slightly down so that you take up as much of the frame as possible. Now, you don't want to angle it too high, otherwise you're going to wind up cutting off the top of your own head. So just give yourself a little bit of headroom there, but just fill the frame with as much of you as you can. Now, the easiest way to make sure that your framing is correct if you're shooting on your own, and also to be able to point around at different things in the background if you want to, is to make sure that you're shooting with a camera that has a rotating screen. Now, the important thing to remember is if you have a camera with a front-facing screen, don't get drawn into watching yourself on the screen. Make sure you keep watching straight down the lens. Otherwise, it's not going to feel like you're actually interacting with your audience. It's going to feel like you're distracted by something else. If your camera doesn't have a rotating screen so you can see what you're doing, there may be other alternatives. For example, most cameras will have an output plug, either a USB or a HDMI, so you could maybe set it up plugged into a TV or something so that you can still see what the scene looks like whilst you're standing in front of the camera. But being able to see yourself means that you can not only interact with the screen a lot easier, but also you know that you're not in the wrong part of the screen, that you're actually where you want to be whilst you are filming, which just gives you that sense of security and allows you to focus on what you are actually talking about. And fourth and final, audio. And I am not talking background music to the videos or anything like that. I mean how you are sounding to your viewer. Whenever you are talking to somebody, if you are in a quiet room, you can hear crystal clear every word that they are saying and you understand and can engage fully with them. If you're trying to have a conversation in a busy environment though, and there's a lot of background noise, you can start to get distracted by what's going on in the background, even if it's only at a subconscious level. The same thing happens with video. Right now, you are hearing my voice recorded through this small microphone that's stuck to the top of my t-shirt. Now, if we switch to the microphone built into the camera, this is what I sound like. I sound very distant, not only because my mouth is further from the camera than it is from this microphone, but also because the microphones and cameras don't pick up from a single direction. So even though I'm in a room completely on my own with no other noises whatsoever, you are hearing all of the echoes bouncing back off the walls. If there was any background noise, this would sound even worse. Now, if you're filming multiple people having a conversation, you could use something like a shotgun mic, which is something a little like this. Now, this is quite a big version of a shotgun mic, but the idea is that it only detects sound coming straight forward from it. So if I were to set this up on the camera pointing straight at me, it's not going to pick up any of the noise to its sides or behind it. However, if you're just shooting yourself talking, then a lapel mic is probably the cheapest and easiest solution. If your camera has a built-in microphone port, then you can just plug the lapel mic straight into the camera and record yourself as you are. That's assuming the cable reaches or you buy an auxiliary extension cable. This does mean that any video footage you film, the only audio you are going to hear is going to be coming straight from the microphone. However, that could be restrictive for a couple of reasons. Maybe you want to get yourself talking but also incorporate some of the background noise, in which case the lapel mic isn't going to pick that up. Also, you might want to position yourself further away from the camera than the cable will reach. So you could buy extension cables, but you're still tethered to the camera. So if you want to stand further away from the camera or maybe move around a bit more and not be tied into the camera, then you can use what I use, which is an external audio recorder. Now, this is a relatively expensive model. However, you can just get very cheap dictaphone recorders, which won't give you quite the same level of audio quality, but is going to give you a much better audio output than what you will get from the camera. It also means that you can stand an infinite distance away from the camera and you can still hear what you are talking about. The only problem with this setup is that you are going to wind up with a separate audio track from your video. So you're going to have to merge the two back together in editing afterwards. Now, that's not a particularly difficult thing to do, but it's just another step in the editing that you've got. However, the results that you get will outweigh the extra couple of minutes that it's going to take you to do that. So a couple of budget lights, a cheap microphone setup, and a tidy up in the background probably set you back about £80, but it's going to make your videos look a lot more professional very, very easily. So, hope this has helped you. If you have any questions or queries, leave your comment down below and I will see you in the next video.